Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome back to the Chronic Pain Club this Sunday, the first of the new year, actually, after our little festive break. So thank you for everyone that are returning back here after that. Welcome in Nia, Lauren, Alex. Sorry if I've missed anyone else. I was a little bit behind today. My son turns 6 tomorrow, so I can't believe I'm going to be the parent of a 6-year-old come tomorrow. That's a little bit daunting. And we had the whole birthday party and everything, so I feel like I'm sitting here with a headache, tinnitus. Probably been exposed to way more germs than my immune system can handle today. But we've had cake, and I definitely don't feel tired at all, I promise. So I hope you're all well, guys. Alex, no, lurk isn't a thing. That we don't have commands on YouTube Live yet, but maybe it will be. But thank you for joining us, and also just letting us know you're watching in the background. The whole Chronic Pain Club, it is about creating a peer support community for people to hang out, support each other, ask questions, learn from others' experiences, and ultimately there are only so many times I can share my story. So I created this and this channel in order to share as many other stories as I could, whilst I had the platform. And speaking of the platform, guys, last night, whilst we were busy streaming over on Twitch, which I never think I actually have a link on here for Twitch, I probably should have at some point, but while we were streaming on Twitch, we had over 60,000 people watch on the YouTube channel, this very channel, which is, I can't really get my head around it. We're just past 3,000 subscribers, which is a big deal on YouTube. It's hard to get people to follow you and keep coming back on YouTube. So thank you to everyone who's ever been a guest on the show, who's ever had a chuckle at one of my stupid memes. We try to like create I'm trying to create an environment where whatever the way that is you cope with your chronic illness, however it is that you help yourself and get through the day, whether that's through sort of gallows humor or informing yourself, we try to create a sort of a space for everyone. So you can find on the channel questions that I maybe ask the community on a daily basis. You can find me sharing my experiences, obviously other people sharing their stories, like we're going to hear from tonight, and there's also like funny stuff on there as well. But yeah, there was a particular video that done well yesterday, and we now had our highest ever watch count or view count, whatever you want to call it, on a video. So thank you to everyone that supported us. For anyone who doesn't know the journey of this channel, it's been going about 4 or 5 years. And I think up until the start of 2024, we'd maybe had 90,000 views on the channel. We're now at 250,000 views. This last year has been phenomenal. I don't really know what's happened. There is no magic formula apart from we just kept plugging on. So thank you to everyone who supported us. Really appreciate it. And like I say, we've got the podcast if that's your thing. We've got the live stream if hanging out with people and talking in real time is your thing. You can go back and watch all the edited videos, all that sort of stuff. We're trying to meet people where they are as best we can, and we must be doing something right now, guys, for us to jump by over 200, well, it's about 200,000 views we've had in the last calendar year, which for a very niche channel like us, I think it's not bad. Sue, not a problem. Thank you for all your lovely messages this week, Sue. I really appreciate it, and I hope the meeting goes well. Yeah, if I missed anyone, please let me know. Usual thing, guys, on this one, we bring our guest in a moment. We take the chat off screen. That's for safety, 1, to protect our guest, but 2, to make sure that one bad egg doesn't ruin a video. But the chat will carry on wherever you're watching. So you'll see these lovely people in chat. Most have got a little YouTube logo next to their picture. Sue has got a Facebook one. So when the chat comes off screen, you can carry on talking. I can see it. I will still share comments, etc. But you'll only be able to view the platform that you're watching. So if you're watching this on YouTube, where most people are, you could talk amongst yourselves, and don't feel like you're being rude, guys. We encourage you. This is supposed to be an hour before the start of a new week, which can be quite a daunting time for some of us. Maybe we're worried about getting into work, maybe we're struggling with our pain, maybe we have to cancel plans this weekend. The whole point of this being on a Sunday evening, UK time, I appreciate we have lots of folks from the USA in the audience every week, but the whole point of this being on a Sunday is to maybe give you a bit of a break from whatever negative thoughts or stuff, the burden of our diseases that might be weighing on you. So please do lean on each other in the chat, talk about off-topic stuff. It really doesn't matter, and if you've got any comments on the interview that's going on, we will share them on screen, but don't think you're being rude, guys. We are here as a peer support community, first and foremost. So with that said, I think we should probably get going. We have got a lot to talk about tonight, so this might turn into a multi-part conversation. But let me kill the music, so I always forget. I always forget. I haven't forgot to kill the music in forever, but but I still keep saying it. But tonight, guys, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Nicole, who's an autoimmune health strategist, a certified AIP coach at Natural Healing Coach, executive director of the AIP BIPOC network, and also a person that's living with multiple conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, Hashimoto's, amongst other things. Jamie, welcome in. I hope I didn't miss anything there.
No, you didn't. I'm also a fitness instructor, which is why I find joy in movement. But yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything.
Brilliant. And where are you joining us from today?
I am joining you from Houston, Texas, in the USA.
Amazing. I think you might be our first person from Texas. I'm probably going to go have a load of people tell me I'm wrong now, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us in the middle of your day on a Sunday. So we will do a deep dive into your sort of diagnosis journey in a moment, but I wondered if you could maybe give people just an overview. I know I've mentioned some titles there, but maybe just a bit of an overview of who Nicole is, if they've not come across you before.
No problem. As he said, I am a certified health coach. I became one shortly after my first diagnosis in 2015 of Hashimoto's. I was working a corporate job, but it wasn't my passion. And so when I'm going to get a little bit into the story here, found out what was wrong with me, quote unquote, wrong with me, as far as the first diagnosis was concerned. It was shocking because I thought all of the symptoms were normal when they were just common. And so I always liken it to when you get glasses for the first time. For those of you who wear glasses, like I didn't know how blind I was until I got glasses. I knew I couldn't see well, but when I got glasses, I knew how bad it was. It was like that for me once I found out what it was that was causing me the issues. I was sick, quote unquote, had symptoms, but thought that were normal just because of my lifestyle. And so because my job was not a passion of mine, and I felt so good after I did figure out some things with that first diagnosis, I felt compelled and had a passion for helping others do the same. So I became a certified health coach. I completed the program in 2017. So diagnosis of Hashimoto's in 2015, certified coach in 2017. But in between that time, I was still feeling like crap. So a lot of us, when we first get that diagnosis, we think that everything is going well. I think that's the only thing we may have a diagnosis for, and we just go on living life. With me, I went back to old habits, not focusing on stress, not focusing on sleep, even though I was focusing on nutrition. And so a couple of years later, after much duress and stress, I got diagnosed with narcolepsy type 2 in 2019. So it was a long process of trying to figure out how to treat that, because that was a separate process than dealing with the Hashimoto's. And so when we were on quarantine for that year, my type A personality who just can't sit down anywhere, decided to get certified as an autoimmune coach, AIP, as you mentioned earlier. And so if you're not familiar with what AIP is, it's a lot of people call it a diet, and we do call it a diet, but it's not a long-term diet. It is a tool that we use to find out what our particular food triggers are for our autoimmune disease, and they vary from person to person. So it goes through a process of a 30-day elimination, sometimes more, depending on what disease state that you're in, and then a gradual reintroduction of those foods over time to see if you have a reaction. And so if you don't have a reaction to the food, of course, you can add it back in. But if you have a reaction to that particular food, you know to keep that out, because that is a trigger for you for your flares. And so I did that, and again, did the complete autoimmune protocol myself, along with some other, dietary changes, and was able to, better manage my narcolepsy as well. So that was in 2021. And so again, I'm thinking everything is going good. I have two diagnoses.
Common, isn't there?
Right? I have two diagnoses now. And then, always in between this time, I've had several surgeries. I've had knee surgery in 2019 as well. Started having problems with one shoulder in 2018. Well, in 2023, Joel, started having problems with the other one. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the doctor for all of these different joint issues. and they're asking you what you did. I'm like, all I did was go to sleep and wake up. I did not do anything.
Yeah.
Right? I ended up
Yeah.
having 2 symmetrical
Sometimes there isn't a
tears in
cause.
2023 with my rotator cuffs. I had not done anything to warrant 2 symmetrical tears in my rotator cuffs. So long story short, 2015 Hashimoto's, 4 years later, another diagnosis of narcolepsy type 2, and then just as early as 2023, diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and had 2 shoulder surgeries because of that. So managing all of those has been a different experience, but also too, going through that process for me, we talked about a little bit why I coach, helping others navigate it, because it can be a long process of trying to figure out all that information on your own. It can be overwhelming, especially when you're trying to figure out what's actually going on with your body. And so for me, it's kind of 2-part, turning my test into a testimony, and then helping to advocate for others who don't have the resources that I have, or the privilege of having access to.
I, I love that. I've got so many questions, but I've got to try and stop myself from jumping ahead, especially on the coping with that. But I suppose the one where we should probably start is with those like multiple diagnoses, and I'd love to hear more about those individual journeys as much as you want to share. But I think a lot of people, well, if my DMs are anything to go by, they think a diagnosis is going to fix everything. You know, they'll often say they've got these problems, and they'll get that label, and then all of a sudden, yeah, and it does help, maybe access to treatment, things like that. So how did you know, you had those things just come along, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, what did that look like, and how did you see the wood for the trees in terms of what was this problem and what was that problem? I'd love to know a little bit more about that if you don't mind sharing.
It has, like I said, it has been different every time, and I would say, just as important as food, as stress, as sleep is, the mental part of this journey, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier about the first diagnosis. Again, I wasn't educated. Had not been a health coach. I had been in corporate America. So I thought, again, once I got the diagnosis, and again, also type A personality. And I must say this because I know we have some that are listening right now. Those with chronic illness, in my particular instance, I deal with a lot of people with autoimmune disease, the most type A personalities I've ever seen. So once you have a problem, you want to fix it. Once you have an issue, you want to fix it. That also comes along with the personality trait of overworking and stress, not getting enough sleep. So for me, after that first diagnosis, not being aware of how holistically all of those things work together, I jumped right back into overworking myself, overextending myself, compensating with coffee until, as we get older, and I'm still having that issue now, Joel, I'll be 45 in a couple of weeks. I'm knocking on menopause. The older I got, it got more difficult to manage those things. And so that's when I had to have that reality check. You mentioned earlier about playing rugby, the mental toll that takes on you when you think you're going to be able to do advance in corporate America or on your job. You think you're going to be able to do a certain sport or those things that you love. So it was a gradual process over time that I'm still working through even as we speak. And so for the second diagnosis, because fatigue comes along with autoimmune disease, I had to advocate for myself because I knew it was a little bit different. And let me just give a little backstory. Type A personality in high school, which in retrospect, this is when these symptoms started that I had no idea. I was, again, president of Honor Society. I was president of student council at the same time. I graduated number 5 in my class, and I'm not saying that to brag, but I was popping no-dos, drinking coffee, drinking Geritol out of the bottle. If you're not sure what familiar with what that is, it's iron, thinking it's everything else. And that I'm just overworked or I'm staying up late. And that really wasn't what it was. I just thought it was normal. So when I had the narcolepsy, because I was in college after high school, 2 kids, married and divorced, working full time and getting my master's again, as a lot of us do, thinking that the tiredness is just something that comes with the territory. But when I got older and that narcolepsy hit, and the labs for my Hashimoto's were in the functional range, I
Mhm.
could have just said, okay, it's just something that goes along with autoimmune disease, but it wasn't that at all. I had been through all of that in college and was exhausted. This was a different type of exhausted. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with narcolepsy type 2, and a lot of people
I was
aren't.
actually going to ask that because I didn't realize there was types. I'm ignorant
Yeah,
there. I
there's
didn't
a
realize
whole
there was types.
spectrum of different sleep disorders, and it's not how you think it would be on TV.
Mhm.
And actually, now if you can go to the some autoimmune disease websites, it's classified as an autoimmune disease as
Oh,
well,
wow. Okay.
because it's actually my immune system attacking a chemical in my brain that regulates my sleep cycle. So some of the symptoms are excessive daytime sleepiness, insomnia. Um, Vivid dreams or hallucinations, depending on which type you have. What distinguishes type 1 from type 2 is a symptom called cataplexy, where you just fall asleep anytime, whether it be a good emotion or a bad emotion. And I don't
Mhm.
have that one symptom, which is why I think it took me until I was 39 years old to get diagnosed.
Yeah.
But it's doesn't matter how much you sleep. I would wake up every morning just in tears because my brain could not function. Imagine the brain fog that you would have with autoimmune disease on steroids, and it's multiplied times 10. So imagine that, dealing with that and not knowing what it is. You're tired. I didn't want to, at the time I was still working in corporate America, I didn't want to tell my, higher ups that I was just tired, because
Yeah.
they're going to say what everybody says, just get some more sleep, get some more rest. Everybody's tired. But I was falling asleep at ATMs. I was falling asleep while I was driving. It was that bad. And again,
Mhm.
it didn't matter how much sleep I got. I was always tired. And so I always, that's one of the symptoms I often see with people who have autoimmune disease, is the fatigue. And so I would just want to plug in here, for me, you have to advocate for yourself, even if you already have a diagnosis, get a differential diagnosis. What else could it be? Because if I hadn't done that, I don't know where I would be right now,
Yeah.
because it was the symptoms and the detriment that it cost in my life, as far as being able to function, being able to work, being able to take care of myself and my kids, was life changing.
Yeah. And it shows you how important awareness is, because what I was thinking listening to that is like, if you just went by media and portrayal, you'd think narcolepsy is just people just randomly falling asleep. Insomnia is never covered, or the dream side, or the autoimmune element. That's something that's completely new to me. So it shows you how important it is to talk about these things and share these stories, because
Hmm.
people need help, like you say, advocating for yourself. People need help joining the dots as well, don't they? Just to get to the doctor's office and not think they're just failing, or they're tired, or they're managing things badly. Because I don't know about you, I'm very quick to put it on me, and sometimes there isn't. We were talking about it a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
Sometimes there isn't a reason. Sometimes you didn't do anything wrong, but that's kind of like, it can be your go-to, can't it?
Hmm. And I want to reiterate that, and to your question that you asked about managing it. um, People, and we often hear, I reversed my disease. I don't have it anymore. And that may be true to a certain extent, as far as you don't have symptoms, but you don't know when something's going to trigger it again. It could be a month, it could be a year, it could be 5 years. But you always have to have in the back of your mind that it could come up again. And how do you manage that? How do you create tools during those times when you're not having flares, to kind of mitigate when you do? So you're being both proactive and minimizing the number of flares that you get, but also when you do get them, because they will come, how do you make sure that you have the tools to allow them not to be so long, or not to be so impactful, so intense on your life? So that's what I focus on. Because again, Joel, after that, right, 4 years, I'm thinking, and it was bad. I ended up having to get medical retirement from my job. So all
Mm.
those years in school, graduating number 5 in my class, president of honor society, and student council, to work hard to achieve the quote unquote American dream, as they
Mhm.
told us that we need to do. And that's what I'm focused on, to only end up, in retrospect, when I'm thinking about this, Joe, late in the midnight hour,
Yeah.
I could have been making my health worse. And now I don't have my health or my career. So reframing, what's really important, I think is a big thing. And then also that it's a lifelong journey, no matter how long you've been in quote unquote remission or you haven't had a flare. Just being prepared for that mentally and physically, because I thought after that second diagnosis I was done.
Yeah.
I had gone through, the both coach certifications. I had been coaching people on mental mindset, but when I got that third diagnosis and I was in bed by myself after that first surgery, I had surgery in August of 2023 on this first shoulder, in November on the second. Joel, I was pissed. I mean, just to be honest with you, I'm not going to candy coat it and say, oh, just because you're a coach, everything is, roses all the time. It's not. I was pissed. Every 4 years, I think that I'm doing everything right. And by all accounts, from my eating, working out, stress management, I was. And it was no fault of my own. But to have to constantly go through that and the unpredictability of it, it's not like it's a disease, and I don't want to minimize any other chronic illnesses like cancer, where like there's a process or a timeline that you go through. And then also, especially because I like I mentioned earlier, I am a fitness instructor. I do fitness. I do runs. People judge me on that alone because I don't often, and I love what you're saying earlier about this community, and I need to get on Twitch with y'all. A lot of people don't understand. And so it's hard to have relationships with people who don't have chronic illness, because sometimes with that, it comes a sense of judgment, even if they don't say it verbally. Well, you were doing fine the other day. What's the matter now?
Oh, how many times have we heard that? You're fine yesterday. Yeah, well, that was yesterday.
I saw you hopping around. And it really does just depend on the day. Even after surgery, I don't think I fully recovered. And so when you were mentioning, again, I'll bring it up again, the rugby earlier, what I used to be able to do before those last two surgeries, I still have not regained the same level of endurance that I had before. So my mindset had to shift. I had to learn to adapt, to find other things that I loved and enjoyed, that replaced the things that I used to be able to do.
Yeah, and people completely underestimate what it's like to live with a mind that's in a constantly changing body, and it takes, we all age, you hear about people having midlife crises and things like that, but when you're living with chronic illness, it's changing so rapidly. Like the things I could do last year that I can't do now, and vice versa, and then maybe you'll get a little bit of hope and something will come back, and then it gets taken away from you again. That's that constant, that grief cycle that we have to keep sort of digesting. So I think what's really refreshing from you, I think in the world that we live in of best lives and people sharing all the positives, and for you to come on here and say, like, it's not roses and I do struggle, and yes, I might be a fitness coach, but I also have these problems. I think that's really important in 2025, because it feels like since the pandemic, for me, just as a chronic illness patient, not as an advocate or anything like that, as a chronic illness patient, I feel like whenever I open up an Instagram or something, I'm failing, and it depresses me to the point where I just want to close my accounts down. So I think it's really important to hear somebody saying that, yeah, I could do this, but also this sucks, or I struggle at this. And so, yeah, thank you for being real. I appreciate it.
But no, I just want to interject, but say thank you as well for this platform. And I say that only because it's fresh in my mind. I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, actually, that's also in the same space. And again, when you would look online, it would seem as though, because she's a coach, they have a coaching business, she partners with other autoimmune coaches, that everything was fine. And a 30-minute conversation turned into a 3-hour conversation, just like this. It's just like you're afraid to share your experiences out of judgment, and also because you're supposed to be a leader in the space. But because I'm an AIP coach does not mean that everything is perfect for me all the time. I've learned the tools and I teach the tools to help better manage it. But it doesn't mean that those things don't come up for me. And I think because those things do come up for me, and they are still coming up, that makes me an even better coach, because I understand that you don't want to hear any BS about everything's going to be all right, or a timeline for everything's going to be all right. I can't promise you that. I can give you tools to help you cope better. I can provide resources for you, but it's so individualistic with lifestyle and what you have going on, where you are in your life, how old you are. There's so many different factors, but all I know for myself is, and how I managed to mentally get through it. Had I done nothing, Had I not gotten the education, had I not gotten the resources, had I not connected with community that I can talk to when I need to, I would have been much far worse off than than what I've been doing over the past, I guess 10 years now. It's been 10 years since my first diagnosis.
Mhm.
Had I not gotten educated on the autoimmune protocol, had I not gotten educated on narcolepsy and become an ambassador, I wouldn't know the things that I know now. And it actually helped me get my rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis sooner. I knew about the butterfly rash on the face. That was one symptom. And then my shoulders with the symmetrical issues. So I initiated going to my primary care physician to get the tests. And it came back positive for mixed connective tissue disorder first and negative for rheumatoid arthritis. And she referred me to a rheumatologist. But had I not known, right? And so even when I went to the rheumatologist, they didn't want to give me an official diagnosis. And what kind of scared me a little bit too, I was in the rheumatoid arthritis groups and I saw the issues that they were having with their joints. And mine aren't that bad. But because I have so many other issues with every other part of my body, my hands and my feet are the only things that are really good, right?
Yeah.
And it's in those groups that I also saw that some people had their arthritis start in their shoulders. So the doctor told me something that wasn't necessarily true. And so
Mhm.
at least now I can monitor and get my hands and my feet x-rayed every 6 months and be proactive with that. So again, my quality of life or the disease onset doesn't have to be as rapid as it would have been if I didn't know anything and I didn't advocate for myself.
It was actually going to be one of my questions is how have you seen that? How has it changed your experience from the Hashimoto's and narcolepsy and that period of your life to post being an advocate and empowered and you've kind of just answered it there. Is there any other ways you could think that that has helped? Obviously, it helped you ask the right questions and maybe get the help, but in terms of like peer support or I know we've talked about a little bit about community. How has that improved your experience with the arthritis diagnosis as compared to, maybe when you were first getting these diagnoses 10 years ago?
A lot quicker. That was the thing. It took me 4 years for me to get the second diagnosis. And actually, for the first diagnosis, Joe, I didn't think anything was wrong. Like I had health issues, but some of the issues ran in my family. I already had the osteoarthritis. Both my parents have joint issues. I was having problems with my blood sugar. Those types of things that in my community would consider as normal. They're common, but they're not normal. And so that delayed me with getting the diagnosis. And
Yeah.
actually, Joel, what I went to the doctor for, it wasn't even for that. I was just trying to lose weight. Just to be honest with all of y'all that are watching and are watching on the replay,
I'm loving
I
hearing.
had
I
finished
love you.
college, married, divorced. I got my job. I was like, I'm about to get it together. So I was doing all the things. I was going to the gym. I was doing my Zumba. I was no pain and no gain. I would go to Zumba and sprain my ankle, come home and ice it, and be like, no pain, no gain, and go back. I was at that time drinking all the green smoothies, and it didn't matter if I drank a smoothie or I ate a donut. It just didn't matter. And you see people online, they're just eating whatever they want. I was just like pissed at that. So, Jamie, let me take ownership and go see what's wrong. I was following someone online and they said, if you are having those issues, go get your hormones checked. And that's what I did. And lo and behold, my autoimmune disease impacts my thyroid. So that was the issue with the weight loss. And so once again, I got more knowledge of how all of it works and understood that if you have one autoimmune disease, it's likely that you have more than one and
Yeah.
that you have other issues. And also too, once I got to a state of finding the foundation of how my body felt when felt good, anything that was off, I'm always on top of. I don't wait. Either I'm going to document it, I'm going to take it to the doctor. I have a binder, and actually now 3 binders, 3 ring, of all of my medical diagnosis, all of my labs, everything. And so, had I not had the knowledge that I had from being an autoimmune coach, I never would have gotten that diagnosis quickly. So I started having the rash maybe in this spring of 2023. I went to my first doctor in June of 2023. When I went to the rheumatologist, they didn't want to diagnose me at first, but after my first surgery, I wasn't getting better as quickly as they thought I should. And so they put me on
Mhm.
a steroid taper. And because I got better after the steroid taper, they
Yeah.
were willing to diagnose me with the rheumatoid arthritis and put me on a plan to monitor it over time.
Yeah. And I take it, you mentioned the rash a couple of times. I take it like lupus isn't in the mix. Is it just rheumatoid arthritis? And I say just, like, you know what I mean.
I mean, it could be. It runs in the
Yeah.
family, and then now again, I'm a hot mess. I just mentioned
Not.
in between us doing booking this podcast episode, I had another surgery, and so ladies had to have a what do you call it, hysterectomy,
Okay.
and lots of gastro issues afterwards. And so I go to the doctor to figure out what that is, and she was like, "Sounds like you have gastritis." And so now, again, in the back of my mind, autoimmune gastritis. I have all of the symptoms. It's triggered by NSAIDs and surgery, which I've had 3 in the past year. So things like that, and knowing that helps me stay on top of it and know that I need to go see a specialist to get that checked out and not just dismiss it as, somebody else may, just wait or just take, Pepto-Bismol or some type of other, antacid or whatever they need to take. I know I need to dive a little bit deeper to make sure it's not anything else. So just having that awareness that, again, it may be common, but it's not normal. Many times, and I say this more so for women. I know it's for men too. We dismiss it. I know men oftentimes don't like going to the doctor, but women just think that those symptoms are normal, even though we go to the doctor. We don't think that all of the things that we do, the lack of sleep, the stress, everything that we have on our plate is contributing to our health. We think that we're just tired or have insomnia because that's just the way life is and our schedules are off, when it could be something else. And until we get to that root cause and learn what that is, we're never going to be able to fix it.
I'm smiling, by the way, for anyone watching the video or watching us live, because you have no idea how relevant that is at the minute with my sleep. And I'm that person where I'm like, oh, I'm stressed. I'm just working a lot. I've got a lot on my mind, and my wife will be pushing me to get it looked at. And yeah, you're not helping me here, Jamie. We're going to come off this call, and my wife is going to be tapping her foot, arms crossed. So I told you she'd have gone straight to someone. But yeah, it's true though. And I think it's so easy for us to, even once you've got the diagnosis, I don't know why we do it to ourselves, but even once you've got the diagnosis, we still don't always want to put everything into that pot. Do you know what I mean? It's always like something, again, I talk about that, oh, I must have done something. I went to bed too late and I'm out of sync, or I got myself too worked up over that project at work. And where really sometimes we need to be a little bit kinder and real to ourselves and say, this could just be my condition flaring and it needs some intervention, or it could be an offshoot of it,
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm loving how real. I'm loving all the sharing, because I cards on the table. I'll be really honest. Over the last 5 years, I've had some really bad experiences online. With people claiming to be life coaches or saying that they can cure my arthritis, or dropping into my DMs and telling me how they can cure my arthritis, and that word comes up a lot. And you end up getting a little bit of unconscious bias and everything about anyone who's sort of promoting a holistic approach to manage your condition. So to hear somebody come on and talk about them real issues and not always getting it right, and how it sucks sometimes, I can't tell you, you are restoring my faith in people. So thank you. I suppose what I'd like to ask you, and we knew we weren't going to fit everything in, so we're jumping around here. For anyone who's listening, I might be able to twist Jamie's arm into coming back, and we'll fill in the gaps. But for anyone who's now going through that, knowing what you've learned and how you've sort of empowered yourself, educated yourself, you've used that word a couple of times, what would your advice be to somebody that's either just been diagnosed, or maybe they find themselves in your position where it's like one thing after another, that they're dealing with the multiple conditions as autoimmune often brings us? What advice would you give them? Sorry, it's a big question.
Yeah, it is. It is a big
but I know
question.
You can handle it.
Yeah. I guess the first thing would be to show themselves grace. You're not going to always feel good. You're not going to always have all of the answers. Sometimes you will work as hard as you possibly can to stay on top of everything. And as you mentioned, things aren't going to go right. But for me, how I kind of accept this journey is that every piece of information is something that I'm eliminating that makes me one step closer to finding out what works for me. Why I'm such an advocate of not saying these blanket statements about, this is going to cure you is because everyone is at different places. Everyone has at different stages of disease progression. Not everything works for everyone, even with just autoimmune disease. So when you start adding in other diagnoses that go along with that, it can become complicated. So as long as you're doing something to move forward, and sometimes, and I'm preaching to myself, that is nothing. There have been a couple of days, especially in between surgeries, where I just cried. I just had to give myself the grace to just let it out because I was pissed. Not necessarily at myself, but just at the circumstances, because I know how hard I had been working. And at the end of the day, I was able to use the tools from those good times to kind of pull myself out of it. And like, Jamie, it could be worse. Had you not done those things to support yourself in the past, you wouldn't be here where you are right now. Even though it sucks, even though you can't move and you're used to being, out and about. Again, had you not taken that effort, taken that time, and I say that, and people kind of minimize it. A lot of people don't. The fact that you even have this podcast, Joel, right? Turning your test into a testimony to help other people. A lot of people don't even do it for themselves. So if you're able to do that for yourself, I'm not saying you have to go out and do a podcast or be a coach or anything like that. You don't have to, go out there and do all of that. But the fact that you're just showing up for yourself is something that you should be proud of, and give yourself grace through the entire process.
You are good. that was a soundbite right there, guys. If anyone wants to know why Jamie can help people, then yeah, that is so true though. And there was a bit there you said about, like, I can't remember how you phrased it, about like what you've already done, because I don't know about you, but I find when I flare, like I say, we've talked a lot about tonight about trying to find a cause or a blame or whatever. My brain is so quick to forget what I have achieved. So a classic example of this, sorry, it's a little bit, it's not meant to be selfish, but just to give a relevant example, I was supposed to do a talk last month and I got sick. I couldn't do it. It would have been the biggest talk of my life. I felt like I'd let everyone down. And I started using language to my wife and loved ones like, well, that's it. I'm a failure. I can't be relied upon anymore. And my wife's very good at saying, well, you did all these tens of other things. It doesn't discount that. It doesn't. But do you know what I mean? Your mindset can very quickly go to that spirally place. I don't know a technical term to describe it, where suddenly everything you've achieved up to date is erased, and it's hard to get out of that place, isn't it?
It very much so is, but this is why I am a proponent. I was listening to you before you pulled me in about the growing community, and it exploded. And I think part of that is because sometimes we as people with chronic illness are in silos, alone by ourselves. And so we get into our head. But I absolutely love at this point working with other people with chronic illness because they understand and they allow you to give yourself grace as well because they actually understand what you're going through. There's been so many times where I'm on a call with my board from the nonprofit. The majority of them have chronic illness. I used to be so embarrassed when I was talking and I would get the brain fog. And I'd be like, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold
I've
on
had
a
that on
second.
here. I've had it on here. I've had to be really honest with the guest and just say, I'm sorry, it's gone.
Like, hold on a second, it's gonna come back to me. But with them, I can be like, hold on, y'all remember what I was saying? Do y'all remember? And it's no judgment. So when it's no judgment from them and they can verbalize that to me, it allows me to take it a little easier on myself because I was in that spot. And that spot that you mentioned, Joel, again, in retrospect, was where I was. I used to, when we were on quarantine, and I would be working from home. And again, I didn't want to tell people at work because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to let anybody down. But in essence, I was, because I thought, to your point earlier, once I figure out what it is, I'm going to be able to fix it.
Yeah.
But it was 4 years of me figuring out what it was. I had to step down from my supervisor role. And because I didn't tell anybody the extent of it, because I didn't think they would understand, the depression and the anxiety that I felt was on overload. And I did not have anxiety before. Joel, I would just try to get up in the morning and walk from my bedroom to my office that I'm in right now. I remember one day I was in the hallway, hyperventilation.
Mhm.
Had never done that before.
Yeah.
I started avoiding calls from my boss out of fear of being judged because I knew it was a deliverable that I didn't give to him, that I didn't provide by that deadline, much to what you're saying about the talk. I was letting someone
Yeah.
down. I was letting my team down. It got so bad with my anxiety. It wasn't even the work. I could not do my timesheet. That level of anxiety with just doing the work or letting people down. So again, being in those spaces where you can talk, because sometimes I was thinking it's just me, especially before the
Yeah.
diagnosis. I thought it was really just me. And even in retrospect, when I realized that I had the symptoms in college, I would be looking around sometimes during the lecture and be, are y'all understanding what's going on? Like I did not understand.
Yeah.
And so it was just that type of stress and anxiety and thinking that you're less than because of something that you can't control is one of the reasons why communities like these are so important. Because you can see that it's not just you. You can get the support that you need. And even in those times when you can't do it for yourself, because there are going to be those times. I'm not going to say, oh, just pull it out of a toolbox and you'll be, no. Sometimes you just need to be, okay, I'm in this space. But as long as you have a community around you who's able to lift you up when you can't, you'll be able to get through it and have enough strength to get through it until you can do it on your own again. It's not about being perfect all the time. It's about progress, and it's about adapting as you go.
Yeah, I love that, and you touched upon like empowerment and stuff, and it's so true because I'll often say to people like I harbored no ambitions to ever be in front of a camera or the podcast thing. None of this stuff is natural to me. I didn't sit as a kid thinking I'd love to be a streamer one day. There was no such thing back then for a start, but you know what I mean. There were no hopes or dreams. It was just like I had a situation. I felt like I didn't have any control over it, but I could maybe have control over the help other people get or the way that they could navigate their journey a little bit easier than the help I had available. Because for me, as a kid growing up with arthritis, help was to go to the local village hall and sit with a load of pensioners who had very different life goals and issues with their arthritis than I did as a 12-year-old boy. So there was no sort of personalized support or holistic care or any of these things. So it was like an accident. But I often say to people, I would not be here tonight talking to you for any other reason than advocacy or this path. I can't think of another passion, whether it was sport or music or whatever, that would have given me it's not even confidence. It's kind of like this. You feel you have to do it, you know. You have to, like you talked about type A personality. I suppose it's that again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've got to fix this. So it's life changing, isn't it? When you find your voice or find a way to help others find their voices, it really is. And I haven't really got a question here. I'm just verbalizing as you were speaking. It really resonated with me.
No, it really is about, for me anyway, it's therapeutic in a
Yes.
way. And also getting back to what we used to do a long time ago. I think we're really disconnected now. But when I grew up back in the day, in church, we used to have the sick and shut in ministry. So everyone would kind of come together and support one another in those times of need, regardless of whether they were your family or not. Those people in the community would rally around you. And that's what I think these spaces are and why they are so important, because we all need someone at some point in time.
Yeah.
We're not meant to go through this life alone. We're not meant to go through this journey alone. So just having, not only going to the group for yourself, your story, again, you don't have to have a podcast. Your story can help someone else recognize those symptoms earlier, so they're not thinking that those symptoms are normal when they're just common. And how many lives can be changed by that? How many lives can be improved by having an earlier diagnosis and not letting that disease state progress to the point to where it's almost impossible to control? And I know that varies depending on when you acquired your chronic illness. Some, did it, younger in life, which I think I did. I just probably wasn't diagnosed.
Yeah.
But imagine if I had known now, known then what I know now, my life may have been a bit different. So it's not just, again, for you, the community helps lift one another up when we can't do it on our own. So again, I applaud you. I'm going to have to get on Twitch with you
That'd be
because
amazing.
I think that's what we're getting back to. And that's why your platform is taking off.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. And also thank you for being a part of these spaces. Because like I say, when I first started this, I didn't know if anyone would would want to share, and we were sort of very much sort of working with friends at the start, and people sort of maybe sharing their story for the first time, and it's kind of snowballed to where we've got these real big voices and authority figures and people coming in, and we're so fortunate now that we can have people from all sides of the conversation. So what started off as us sharing lived experience is now us sharing lived experience, and then next week it might be a medical professional, the week after an academic or a researcher or somebody that runs an organization. And I am well aware that we've run out of time, and we have not talked about the work you do with the BIPOC network and everything. So I would love to have you back, and I'm putting you on the spot, but I'd love to have you back to talk about that in a second part if you'd be willing.
No problem. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So I appreciate we haven't, like I say, we talked a little bit about your diagnosis journey. We talked a lot about community and advocacy and everything, and peer support has really come across. And I can see from messages in the live chat that that's really resonated with people. So perhaps maybe when you return, we could talk more about how you help people, like more specifically the work you're doing with the AIP BIPOC network, and then what the future looks like. But before you go, I'd love to give you an opportunity to tell people where they can find you, how they could start a conversation, get involved, etc.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you. So I have it on the screen next to my name. I'm on all platforms at Heal Coach, HEALCOACH, right there on the screen. And then also my website is a natural healing .coach. You can find me there. And then also, I know we haven't talked about it, the AIP BIPOC network, we have an online community as well with different resources for AIP. So all on all platforms at AIP BIPOC.
Brilliant, thank you. And I've shared some links there in chat, and anyone listening to this back or watching it back, they will all be in the description. Jamie, I appreciate we've run out of time, so I'm going to very reluctantly let you go because I feel like I could have just sat. Nope. This is very therapeutic for me tonight. I feel like if we had a perfect I don't know, user profile, if anyone's used to those terms, or demographic for what our guest would look like, you would be the perfect one. So thank you for, there are some interviews that are just easy and I can just sit back and listen, and this was one of those. So thank you so much for being a brilliant guest. Please do come back. You've got the join in link, so just go grab a date. I'll have you back whenever it's convenient, and we'll talk more about the work that you do and how.
Sounds how you good. Help. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me, Jamie. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Guys, thank you so much. Just bring the chat back up on screen there. Thank you so much for your engagement during that. I hope you enjoyed it. What a wonderful guest, hey? What a wonderful guest. I really do hope Jamie can come back on and we can carry on that conversation, because I feel like that could have been a 2-hour interview and it wouldn't have been boring or repetitive at all. I feel like there was so much to go into there. I love that. And guys, if you'd like to get involved with what we do here on the show, please do get in touch. It is a new year. The calendar is always a little bit empty at the start of a new year because nobody wants to make commitments before Christmas. So get in touch, whether you want to share your lived experience, whether you're a key opinion leader, an academic researcher. It doesn't have to be about pain. It's how we started. It used to be an arthritis podcast and an arthritis talk show. Then it sort of expanded into autoimmune disease, then it was chronic pain in general, but we've covered all sorts here, and it came up a little bit on that conversation, but I didn't want to interrupt what Jamie was saying, in that I have never had depression and anxiety when I haven't flared, when my condition hasn't been unmanaged. So why would we not just take off all the walls, break that silo down, and just cover all health topics? So if you've got any lived experiences, and basically we want to hear if you're doing things to help patient outcomes. That's what we're here for. So we're big proponents of patient-centered care, people-centered healthcare, whichever sort of term you use. I know it changes across oceans. Holistic care, shared decision making, social prescribing. I'm a massive proponent of social prescribing. Anything in them sort of buckets that you can bring to the conversation, please do get in touch. Thank you for the people that are watching on LinkedIn. I sometimes forget that we've got people watching in LinkedIn. I hope you're well. It's because we don't get that many comments. So thank you, Harriet, for getting involved and let me know we've got people and reminding me that we've got people watching on other platforms. Gallant, thank you so much for coming over. I'm assuming you are the one and the same from our Twitch community. You would have heard us guys talk a lot about Twitch there, and I really should set up something to share. I was going to quit Twitch earlier this year. I'm going to be really honest. So there used to be a link and then we got rid of it. I even done a YouTube video saying I was going to quit Twitch because I don't know, I kind of lost my way and got a bit fed up. And so let's roll it back. Joel life story time, guys. Everyone get comfortable. We originally started all of this on Twitch. And the whole idea was to create a peer support community. We could raise awareness at the same time. And hopefully we help people whilst educating others, etc., etc. That didn't really work. Twitch is very much about gaming. People very much want to be entertained. And when I was talking about some of this heavy stuff, it didn't really work. You know, one day I'd be stabbing people in a computer game. And the next day I'd be talking about chronic pain, insomnia, and depression. It didn't work. So a couple of years ago, we separated them. And as you can see there on screen, on Twitch, we do gaming for escapism, distraction, to create peer support. And in there, delicately, amongst the adult humor and puns and gameplay, we try and insert a little bit of awareness, a little bit of peer support, direct people to here, direct people to our Discord, etc. And that's now working brilliantly. And then at that time, we also moved over to YouTube to do all the serious stuff. So essentially, you can find us here on Sunday nights and the channel in general for all the serious stuff. You can find us over on Twitch if you use computer games to basically manage your condition, like we do. So many of us do. So many people in chat, Nia, Lauren, Cindy, anyone I've missed, I'm sorry, guys, whilst I was talking. Welcome in, London Girl, by the way. I did see your message. You know, so many people in this chat are also hanging out with us over in Twitch during the week where we just play computer games. At the minute, I'm doing a farming simulator stream. So it's basically just me getting to be a 12-year-old boy again and play farms. But because it's very relaxed and chill, it's a nice thing to have on in the background. People don't feel isolated. People get to talk with other people that get it. You heard Jamie talk about it tonight. You know, it's so much easier where you don't have to explain, well, yesterday was a bad day and today isn't, and all those sort of things. That's what we exist for, guys. That's what we're all about. Thank you for all the help getting us to this point. I don't know what happened in the last 6 months. It was almost like the world saw I was about to quit. I don't believe in fate. I'm not religious or anything like that. But I've done this video saying I was quitting Twitch. I lost my voice for over a month after COVID. Everything felt like it was going wrong. And then all of a sudden, the YouTube channel has 200,000 views. And Twitch has got a new lease of life. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe guys with a Norfolk accent and ginger beards are suddenly in vogue. I don't know, but something's happened. So we're going to try and reach as many people as we can and raise awareness whilst we can. So thank you to every single person that's subscribed or followed on those platforms. Thank you to our channel members, which I need to give them another shout out as well over on YouTube. None of this is sponsored, guys. We have never received a penny from anyone for doing the Chronic Pain Club. We've never run an advert, obviously apart from the ones YouTube force on you. We've never been sponsored. So these 5 people along the bottom here are the only financial contribution we have ever had. Plus, I think we've had a couple of previous members that are no longer members, maybe 7, 8 people in total. These are the only financial contribution we've ever had to everything you see here. And obviously this didn't happen by magic. You know, lights and cameras and microphones don't just pop up. We do it willingly because we think we can make a difference by raising awareness, giving people peer support spaces, help them with isolation. And if we can educate some people along the way, then even better. So guys, a massive thank you to Saduki and Sai and Lauren and Gibbo, and there is one more. I think Saduki might actually be a member twice. I don't know if they're aware of that. But yeah, because without you guys, the lights wouldn't be on. If you haven't done so already, go check out the podcast as Joel Nelson Podcast. I'm still very uncomfortable with that name, but that's what everyone voted for. It used to be, what did it used to be called? The Joel versus Arthritis Podcast? I don't know what it used to be, but it's the Joel Nelson Podcast now. Go search my name. wherever you listen to podcasts. You might get a cowboy poet comes up. He seems like a nice guy. Or you'll find me. There tend to be the only two things that come up. And then, yes, everyone who supported us here, whichever piece of this community you take from, guys, it doesn't matter. We get some people come in chat and apologize because they miss. It doesn't matter. The whole point of me showing up here on YouTube to do serious stuff, Twitch to do casual game and distraction escapism stuff, the podcast for people who need something to listen to on a walk because they're having a bad day, the in-person stuff. I'm running out. Maybe I don't do as much as I think I do. But anyway, the whole point, the Facebook groups, etc., the whole point of that is to try and meet people where they are and just close that gap as much as we can, because I was there. I went 20, 30 years of my life as a man living with a disability, and I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. It took becoming a dad, which happened 6 years ago tomorrow, so feel free to say happy birthday to my son Dylan in chat. Bit of a selfish personal request. It took becoming a dad and having my medication changed the very same month that I became a parent, for me to basically hit rock bottom over the 11 months that preceded. It felt like I'd had my first year as a dad taken away from me, and it took me to get that low to start talking, and then the floodgates open. And like you heard Jamie talk about tonight, it's a very powerful thing. And you don't all, just like she said, you don't all have to start a podcast. You don't have to start a YouTube channel. Sometimes it can just be turning to your mate next to you and saying, I'm struggling. Do you want to listen? That's all that matters. And if you educate people along the way, then even better. So thank you, guys. I don't know what's going on with the channel. I don't know how we suddenly got 30 subscribers yesterday, or 65,000 views in 24 hours, or I think we've just hit 250,000 views on the channel, which is mad when you think it's basically really, really serious niche conversations about chronic illness or idiotic memes that I make at 2 o'clock in the morning to keep me sane. That's pretty much all it is, but it's doing all right, isn't it? So thank you for being a part of it, guys. Big shout out to our mods, Lauren and Nia in chat, for keeping everyone safe. If you've enjoyed this on LinkedIn or Facebook as well, guys, please do let us know, because we don't always go out to multiple platforms depending on the topic. If you do enjoy, let us know in chat. And if you're watching this back, leave a comment, because what happens is the minute I end this stream, the whole thing will go up on the platform, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and lots of people watch it back. Actually, I suppose something like 10 times as many people watch it back afterwards than live. So if you are watching this back and you've made it this far, an hour into the show, let us know. Leave a comment, because it always helps us to know where to focus our efforts. Until next time, guys, I'm probably going to close it off there. Thank you for the very selfish request of wishing my son a happy birthday. I'll pass it on. He's a big fan. He knows a lot of the Twitch guys by username, so he's well aware of some of you. Thank you for everything and all the personal support, and also tolerating me in 2024 when we missed big chunks because of health problems, mostly my mental health being sort of like a secondary impact of physical problems. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for just making this an amazing place, far beyond what I ever thought it could become. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye bye.